I want to thank everybody for watching Crypto Revolution. We talk about everything crypto almost daily, jumping right into the market. Bitcoin pumping crazy. What happened? This parabolic green lightsaber candle to the upside based on what the Federal Reserve Board came out with news-wise, and I'm going to cover it. So the key here is you had a bearish downside parabolic break of this falling wedge, and now the price action completely regained this support level. Okay, now we have to look at challenges. It's way overbought. We have to look at challenges facing the price action on the higher time frames for a clearer picture. Because what we do know is you've got your low, your high, your lower low. Now, you do not want a lower high, otherwise your next low could be lower than the previous low, right? Are we out of the woods yet? We've got, I'm telling you guys, Monday, stock market is opening. It's going to be crazy. You've got the Fed closed door meeting. Behind closed doors, the Fed is meeting to talk about emergency going on in the banking sector. But you don't want to see Bitcoin lose this level, 21,500. Needs to hold. This is the Bitcoin 4-hour chart. So now this is important because you put in this huge pump to the upside on this news, but is this just a bearish retest of this pattern, more downside? You already have a lower low. I mean, really, to change the game here, you need a higher high up here eventually, right? You need to break 25,200 on the weekly. We'll get there in just a second. So great pump, feels good. We're going to talk about different things that we're facing in crypto, the stock market's facing. Bitcoin daily chart, we talked about how the 200 simple needed to hold, and it has. And now it's essentially the price action is right here at this trendline resistance. And so you could build a falling wedge, a downtrend here, if the bulls aren't able to break back up into this pattern. Okay, so that's the bearish scenario where this just kind of meanders its way to the downside. You know, Janet Yellen jumped in and she said all day earlier, she was like, yeah, we're not going to bail the banks out. We're not going to bail the banks out. And then they come out with a $25 billion bailout for banking system. Is it going to be enough? That's the question. So on the weekly chart, and again, higher time frame always wins, you had a bullish retest of the 21 and it held as support. And now you've opened the week up here. Essentially, this double top was about to be confirmed, and it wasn't because the weekly closed back above this level. So now, I mean, you could be flagging, but you've got the 50 simple moving average, which has been acting as resistance right overhead. That's going to be a big, around 23,100, going to be a big test for the Bitcoin bulls. I've got some amazing shout outs to give in my trading group. This person, I've gone from $9,000 to $75,000 with fairly conservative plays. Daily profit and loss, this person posted, again, in a week or less than, he's up 3,200 pounds. This person made $700 in a night. Huge. Covers his costs of traveling. Again, if you're starting with a small bag, you need to be trading on Kucoin, but we're in the right coins. We're nailing the bangers, long and short. We'll teach you how to trade this. Right now, for 1 week, we're lowering the prices, rock bottom fees to join the group, $200 off, lowest price ever, plus 60% off. Go over to my website, cryptorev.net. Join. Listen, if you have any questions, email me, cryptobitcoinchris@gmail.com. Make sure you're in the best coins, proven system, life-changing money, period. So Circle CEO says 100% of USDC reserves are safe and secure. A lot of people are talking about how the USDC peg has been regained, but remember, they froze all the movement. You know, even Coinbase, USDC to USD swaps were frozen. Fed Reserve Board is saying, hey, we got $25 billion to save the banks, and Silicon Valley Bank is one of them, and that's where Circle held like $3.3 billion. So it looks like they'll get that money back and everything will be okay with USDC. The US Treasury Department, they also said depositors of Silicon Valley Bank will be made whole as well. However, there are some exceptions, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So what we're setting ourselves up for is a pretty crazy week. You're gonna have a ton of volatility tomorrow. Are you gonna see a run on the banks? Are people going to, pull their money out of the banks? Is this $25 billion enough to stop a bank run? And then you've got the Fed that's faced with, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to raise the rates more or less? Or how are we going to adjust? Do we want banks to fail? So CPI inflation comes in on the 14th, on Tuesday. And so these numbers, when they're released, obviously it'll give you a very good idea what the Fed has to do. But you're thinking, how does this change the Fed's hawkishness? And do they need to bump up the rate hike to 50 basis points, which the market was looking for previously, right? So again, Signature Bank closed by New York regulators, right? And then right after that, you had the Silicon Valley Bank. Signature Bank was one of the off-ramps for Coinbase, also Kraken. That's up in the air, see how that plays out. U.S. officials weigh protecting all deposits at Silicon Valley Bank, and this came out. Federal authorities are seriously considering safeguarding all uninsured deposits at the bank, weighing an extraordinary intervention to prevent what they fear would be a panic in the U.S. financial system. Hey, we're taking decisive actions to protect the United States economy by strengthening public confidence in our banking system. This step will ensure the U.S. banking system continues to perform its vital roles of protecting deposits and providing access to credit to households and businesses in a manner that promotes strong and sustainable economic growth. You imagine what people will be going through if, number one, they lose money from a bank that they're holding money, or they don't have the credit to potentially work their way out of a hole that the economy is forced them into. Right? This economy hasn't been good. You see, this is the 12-month percentage change of the CPI, and you've seen all items go up about 6.3%. Food is up 10%. Energy is up 8.6%. Items besides food and energy up just under 5.8%. Okay, so again, it's out of control. So emergency Fed meeting tomorrow at 11:30. They're going to talk about, hey, what are we going to do about the banks? How are the banks? Do we have to change our stance? We bump the rates up to 50 basis points. I mean, do we get another hit on the banks? Do we see more banks falter? The idea is that it came out with this announcement and Bitcoin immediately pumped. Depositors are going to have access to all their money on Silicon Valley Bank. So USDC regains its peg based on that idea. Under no losses associated with the resolution of SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, by the taxpayer. However, shareholders and certain unsecured debt holders will not be protected. If you own shares in the bank, you're out of luck. Senior management has also been removed. Any losses to the deposit insurance fund to support uninsured depositors will be recovered by a special assessment on banks as required by law. They're going to get their money back on this, they're saying. The Federal Reserve Board on Sunday announced it's going to make available additional funding to eligible depository institutions to help ensure banks have the ability to meet the needs of their depositors. So my concern is, and so one thing I just posted in group was this idea. The US Fed announces $25 billion in funding to backstop banks. I'm doing the math here, calculator. SVB collapse highlights $620 billion hole lurking in multiple banks all over the country balance sheet. So they got $25 billion to backstop banks, but there's a $620 billion hole. Doesn't quite cover it, now does it? So this is setting the tone for a crazy week in the market, Bitcoin included. Federal Reserve Board said it created a $25 billion bank term funding program, offering loans up to 1 year to banks, savings associations, credit unions, other eligible depository institutions. Concern is, well, this is not to save the banks, it's to save the people from the way it says, hey, shareholders are out of luck. You know, obviously 25 billion doesn't go very far. I've seen a number where Silicon Valley Bank could be underwater $10 to $25 billion. And so if this is just 25 billion, what does that mean? There's huge multi-billion-dollar holes in the bank's balance sheets. And I saw some balance sheets, and they were, so one of the banks was real heavy into treasuries, right? And well, they were on their balance sheet, they were showing what the treasuries pay at maturity, right? Not what they were at now. They were where they were looking months ahead and what they will make over months and months and months ahead. And that was on their balance sheet. And the CEOs of Silicon Valley Bank cashed out a ton of stock just before the collapse. Shady, super shady banking sector. ES1. So stock market, futures open. You had a bounce on that news. But again, you've seen a parabolic drop. It's real simple. The bottom line is this. This level right here has to hold. This trend line here has to hold. You got to put in a bounce. This thing loses this level, there could be a lot more downside in the stock market. So again, a lot of this is up to the Fed. What is CPI? What does inflation come out as? Is it higher? Or is the Fed forced to raise the rates? Or are they going to pause and potentially try to save banking sector? Like, how are they going to react to this? And so again, I'm going to keep you updated on this. Make sure watch the channel, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment in the comment box. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow.